Tonight on the Astronomy Show, we take an extensive look at Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield's participation in the Mir-Shuttle space docking mission. Eric Dunn tells us about new Hubble images of star cluster M16. And David Dodge with Astro News. All this and more on the Astronomy Show.
Good evening. Welcome to the December edition of the Astronomy Show. It is that time of the year. The days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, and our thoughts of the Christmas season are becoming uppermost in our minds. Behind me, you can see the Astronomy Show staff doing the traditional decorating of the Christmas telescope. On tonight's show, we will be giving you some gift ideas for that hard-to-buy-for astronomer on your gift list. So get your video recorder going now, or get out a pen and paper so that you don't miss any of the details. You'll want to get some. In addition, tonight, David Dodge will be doing his usual Astro News. Eric Dunn will be chatting with UBC astronomer Jamie Matthews about an exciting and spectacular new image from the Hubble Space Telescope. And we'll have a couple of other surprises for you tonight, so stay tuned. You'll enjoy it.
Atlantis, looks like we got everything lined up, ready for you guys to go, so have a good mission, and we'll see you back here in about 8 days.
And the handoff has been completed. Atlantis' computer is now controlling.
20.
Sound suppression water system activated.
15. 10.
10, 9, 8, 7, go for main engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis with the Russian docking module, the threshold to world cooperation in space.
It is spectacular. From about 5 minutes in, when we knew for sure that we were going to have the weather to go, the smile on my face just got bigger and bigger, and I was just beaming through the whole launch. I mean, it is just an amazing ride. I've had a chance to fly a lot of different airplanes, but there's nothing like the shuttle ride.
Any of us earthbound astronauts know that the closest thing to actually being in orbit is to go down to our local IMAX theater to see one of the many excellent IMAX space films that have already been produced. But if you can't make it down to the IMAX theater, and I do recommend that you do drop by at some point during the holidays, you can now pick up any of the IMAX films on video. The latest IMAX film is Destiny in Space, which we showed on the Astronomy Show earlier this year. Destiny in Space is available in video, and it's quite an excellent chronicle of the most recent shuttle flights, including the deployment and repair of the Hubble Space Telescope and Canadian astronaut Roberta Bonder's flight into space 3 years ago. As well, Hail Columbia, the first IMAX space film, has recently been released in video. Hail Columbia follows the first flight of the space shuttle way back in 1981. As well, Blue Planet and The Dream is Alive, other excellent IMAX space films, are also available on video. And don't forget that there are other IMAX films as well available on video or down at your friendly neighborhood IMAX theater. In Vancouver, we have two of them, the CN IMAX Theatre at Canada Place and the IMAX Theatre at the BC Science World.
If you're wondering what to buy for the astronomer on your list this Christmas, I have a couple of suggestions in the $20 to $25 range that you might want to think about. One is a little astronomer's flashlight. Any kind of flashlight that has a fairly low output and has a little red bulb that you can use fingernail polish on if you wish will work just fine for people who are out observing at night and don't want to get too much glare and lose the dark adaptation of their eyes in the night sky. These little flashlights are very handy for reading star charts, for finding your way around in a good dark night sky. And basically, this little flashlight here is a rechargeable flashlight as well, so that when it runs down, you just plug it in overnight and take it out and use it again. These are available in most department and automotive stores. Another good gift suggestion in the same price range is the Field Guide to the Stars and the Planets, which is available in most bookstores. The Field Guide is an excellent compendium of things for the astronomer. It contains a series of star charts and all the constellations and tons of information about the different kinds of objects you can find in the night sky. Everything you need to know about planets, comets, meteor showers, where to find deep sky objects, star clusters, galaxies, and what objects will be up at what times during the year. It's a very handy thing to carry around in the car, easy to use with binoculars or at the telescope. All in all, a very good idea for an inexpensive but a very worthwhile Christmas gift.
I had the chance to use the Canadarm, the robot arm that's built by Canada that's put on the shuttle today, and it worked exactly like it had in the best of our training simulators in Houston. I picked it up out of the back of the bay and brought it forward and then positioned it exactly where I wanted it to be using the onboard systems and the space vision system and the digitals that come out of the arm. And then when we assembled it, the mechanism, which was built in Russia, just worked exactly like everybody said, so it was letter perfect.
Do you have that special someone who really follows the space program, but you just can't afford a subscription to Aviation Week and Space Technology magazines so that they can keep up what's going on? Well, I've got two magazines that both put out by the same publisher that do basically the same job at a fraction of the cost. First is called Countdown. It's a bi-monthly magazine that covers not only the American Space Shuttle program, but space programs all over the world. It provides reviews, coverage of space shuttle flights, the latest what's happening with the Russian space program, Canadian space program, the European space program. Basically, it's something that you'd want to keep in track with what's going on. Second publication may seem a little strange, since space flight's a relatively new endeavor. So you want a stocking stuffer that won't break your bank account. Here's two for the reader and your family.
So when you get into astronomy, you find you are asking sort of where and when questions a lot. What time does Fomalhaut rise? What's the best time of year to see Scorpius in the early evening? How long do I have to wait until Mars is high enough in the sky to be worth putting my telescope on it? And there's various ways of answering these sort of questions. One of the simplest ways is a wonderful, convenient, low-tech method called looking it up in the Observer's Handbook, which is an absolutely marvelous publication that you can't get along without if you're looking at the night sky at all. It's almost worth joining the RASC just in order to have the Observer's Handbook. It's that good a publication. And there's all sorts of tables of rising and setting and data on other things in here. A lot of them are tables. They require interpolation. You've got to read between the lines. You have almost nothing set for Vancouver's latitude, for example, and that can be a bit of a problem. Another way of answering the same sort of questions can be with a clever device called a planisphere, which is basically a plastic or paper disc, and you look at a dial around the outside, you mate up the time of day or night to the time of year, and it will give you a crude map of what's in the sky. It will be a distorted map, and it won't be exactly for your latitude, chances are, but it can be very useful. You want to get beyond that to a greater level of accuracy. You really want software. You want to warm up your home computer and put in some kind of astronomical program. The most useful are kind of general purpose astronomy programs, often called planetarium programs, because it's rather like having a planetarium on your desk. You can set it for whatever latitude and longitude you're going to be, for whatever time you're going to be observing, and you can see what's up there. And there's a tremendous array of software that you can get. Take an average issue of Sky and Telescope or Astronomy magazines, and you can find a dozen different programs in here that will run on various home computers and will give you a fairly accurate look at what is up there. These range over a huge range in price, all the way from free. There's stuff that's available in the public domain, a program called Home Planet. Version 2 has been very nicely reviewed of late. You could even offload the thing from the net, and we'll give you an address for that later on. If you want a website, you'll need 12 megabytes worth of free space on your disk, but you can't beat the price. It costs nothing at all. You want something a little more comprehensive than that, more stars, more detail. There's a wealth of things you can get. Meade have one that interacts with their own telescopes. If you're buying one of their telescopes, you might consider that. There's a thing called Guide CD-ROM Star Chart. It has a tremendous database involved. The Sky is another one that will interface with your telescopes, and it is suitable for Windows 95, if that's important to you. A particularly good program called Deep Space. It will be useful for tracking comets. It's great for entering the comet orbital numbers in, and you can predict exactly where in the sky it's going to be. Next year could be great for watching comets. Deep Space is definitely a bit of software to look for. We'll give you a toll-free phone number to order that one, because I haven't seen it in any of the stores locally. Redshift is a little out of date now, but has some great stuff if you like asteroids. But probably the best program that I've been using for years is called Deep Space. And just to confuse people, they've just recently changed the name. It's now called First Light. And if you want that one, your best bet is to phone the company. We'll give you another free long-distance telephone number to order that. It's the program I use to generate the astronomical diagrams that we get on this program. And you can't go far wrong with it. You can get timings accurate to a fraction of a minute. You can get really good views of just about anything you could look for in the sky. A problem with much of this software is it's available only in CD-ROM format. Problem with astronomy is you need huge databases, and you'd be spending the entire month loading in floppy disks if you put all of this data in that format. So most of these things require a CD-ROM drive. The advantage of that is that most of the programs I've mentioned come with what's called the Hubble Guide Star catalog, which has over 18 million objects in it. And as a general rule of thumb, if you can't find something using this software, then the Hubble Space Telescope can't find it either, because it's got that amount of data on it. These are really definitive references, and any astronomer will be happy to own this kind of stuff.
We're having a tremendous time up here. We're getting a lot of work done, and we're just as pleased as we can be with the success of all of the experiments and the installation of the docking module and the rendezvous and actual docking with Mir. It's been a marvelous experience, and things are going very well.
Would you want to live on the space station instead of Earth?
Now, I would jump at the chance to live on a space station. After seeing what Sergei, what the life that he has up here, the chance to see the entire Earth every 90 minutes, to do something that a lot of people dream about and very few people get to do, it would be just a tremendous experience. And of all the things to do with your life, what an amazing thing to be able to do.
Tell us a little bit about the effect that that has on the human body, being in space for a prolonged period of time.
Well, Sergei has been up for 2 months already, and as you can see, he looks very fit. They exercise a couple hours a day while they're up here. It changes the body somewhat. The fluids don't pool in your legs due to gravity, so you end up with a fluid shift up to your upper body, and then you end up actually losing some fluids. So you lose mass in your legs. Also, as you can see, we can sit anywhere we want when we're in microgravity. So the whole sense of up and down changes. And it really doesn't matter which way's up. It just becomes arbitrary. And it's amazing how quick you adapt to that.
From time to time, an image comes along in astronomy that just makes you stop and stare at it for a while. We got one of these prize images within the last month from the most prolific source of those kind of images that there is these days in astronomy, the Hubble Space Telescope. Ever since they repaired it, it has been a reliable source of really dazzling pictures. This particular picture is of a thing called M16, not to be confused with the firearm of the same name. This is M16, the nebula, which is something which is invisible to the unaided eye. Through a moderate telescope or a really good pair of binoculars, it might look something like this. There's a rather pretty little star cluster, and next to it there's this sort of patch of glowing luminous fog. Some people think it has a slightly bird-like shape, and this has been called the Eagle Nebula. I have a lot of trouble seeing that myself, but that is an alternate name for M16 if you prefer something a little less technical. Now, the way to get a good view of this image up till now has been to train a large telescope on this nebula and let it take a time exposure. And if you let it soak up light for a few hours, you get something like this picture, taken by David Mallon at the Anglo-Australian Observatory. This is an image which is better seen from farther south than Canada, although we can see it, not so much in the wintertime though. Now this is a remarkable image. It shows the gas cloud glowing with a characteristic red color of hydrogen, and it also shows there's a lot of dust mixed in with this gas, and the dust is very oddly distributed. It's patchy, it's mottled, there are strange structures throughout. We wanted to learn more about this nebula, and of course the best way to do that is to train the Hubble Space Telescope on it. Now HST is not a wide field instrument, so we couldn't get this whole image in to the HST's field of view. It could only concentrate on a small patch right at the very center, but that patch looks pretty amazing once you get beyond the atmosphere and see through the diffraction-limited optics of the Hubble Space Telescope. This is what HST saw, and if we just sort of strip away the wrappings and text and all that, we get a slightly better view. The red color has been suppressed here so we can bring out the color details in this image. And what an image it is. We've got here three immense pillars of dust with gas mixed in. They're opaque to visible light, and all the stuff around these pillars has been stripped away by the tremendous stellar wind from the hot young stars in that star cluster that we saw through our small telescope earlier. It's causing tremendous amount of turbulence and dissipation of this dust cloud, but wherever the dust is thick enough, it leaves a shadow beyond which those bright young stars can't blow the dust away. So you get this sort of pillar effect. But looking closely at the pillars, we see all kinds of odd details as well. There are little prongs and things and stubs sticking out from this. Some of these may be jets squirted out from newborn star systems, because that's what's going on inside this very strange looking part of space. Brand new star systems and almost certainly planetary systems are being formed here. And almost every patch of this one little central region of M16 has got curious features in it. And you can see all sorts of odd shapes in it. I think there's one part of it that looks rather like a dog standing on its hind legs, and there's another one which looks remarkably like a demonic face. But even if you don't see curious pictures and patterns in this remarkable object, you certainly have to admit that it is an astonishing thing to see. And when you consider what's going on here, entire planetary systems in formation on a scale thousands of times larger than our whole solar system, you realize just what an amazing image this really is. I'd like to thank the Hubble telescope people for coming up with stuff like this, and we look forward to a lot more of this in the years to come.
Binoculars are about the best way to introduce yourself to the nighttime sky. Well, these are a bit ridiculous, but perhaps somewhat more what you might want to look for in a pair of binoculars are like these. These are a pair of 7x50 binoculars, and they're made by all sorts of manufacturers. These ones are made in Russia. I choose this particular pair of binoculars because they're lightweight, they have all the features you need, a good clear throughput, they're light in weight, and above all, they're very inexpensive. These ones are about $85. But I choose binoculars because, well, when you're getting into astronomy, especially the young people, buying a telescope might not be a good thing to do right off the bat because telescope might not meet their fancy after a while. But if you have a pair of binoculars around, if the interest in astronomy wanes, you've still got something you can use to look at the birds and so on. Once you do get into astronomy, you're going to need a star chart or something to help you find your way across the sky. Now, Eric showed you the Observer's Handbook. That's going to tell you what's moving in the sky, ephemeral planets, things like that, asteroids, the moon. At the telescope, you're going to need a good star chart. Now, one of the best star charts on the market right now is the Uranometria 2000. This is the star chart that almost every amateur astronomer uses at the telescope. Sky is broken up to small segments, and it's not quite as detailed as the Hubble Guide Star catalog is that Eric showed you or talked about in the software part of the program. But this is something we'd use at the telescope for identifying galaxies, nebula, star clusters, and so on. Now, this is a very high-end star chart. There is another star chart that I do want to point out to you right now, which is the star chart that I use at the telescope. And this is the Sky Atlas 2000 limited laminated edition. The laminated edition is just a wonderful inclusion in the catalog of star charts because at the eyepiece, out in the countryside, it's going to get wet at night. When your star charts get wet, they turn into mush, and they're kind of hard to deal with. And after a while, they become quite unusable. They turn into mush. So the laminated edition is by far a wonderful adjunct to your astronomical catalog of things to have to take out astronomizing with you. So a good pair of binoculars, a star chart of a number of styles is what I would recommend to put on a shopping list for the astronomer in your family. Welcome to the December version of Astro News. I'm David Dodge. Well, as usual, we'll start off with the phases of the moon. The full moon this month happens on the 6th, the last quarter is on the 14th, the new moon is on the 21st, and the first quarter is on the 28th. This month's full moon is called the moon before Yule, or the long night moon. Now, long night moon gets its name from the fact that this month's moon occurs closest to the date of the winter solstice, December 22nd. At 20 minutes past midnight on the morning of the 22nd, the sun will be at its lowest point in its apparent path around the Earth. From that day forward, the days will be getting longer and the nights will be getting shorter. This was a cause of great celebration to the ancient cultures. Indeed, some suggest that when the Romans were celebrating their Saturnalia at this time of year, the devotees of Christ could celebrate their religion without being persecuted. And so while Christ was not born on December 25th, this is the reason why we celebrate December 25th as Christ's birthday, because they could get away with the celebrations and not get caught. This month's new moon coincides with the time when it's closest to the Earth, or perigee. On the 22nd, the Earth is just a mere 2 weeks away from its closest approach to the Sun, or perihelion. The combined gravitational pull of the Sun and the Moon will cause the highest tides of the year. If there's a winter storm that time, then those of us who live close to the water had better watch out. Saturn is the brightest star in the south these evenings. Although not particularly bright, it is always a crowd pleaser through a telescope. And through a telescope, the rings will appear somewhat different this go-around. Because last month, the plane of the equator of Saturn passed through the plane of the equator of the Sun. And so the underside of the rings are not illuminated, and that's what we're seeing this time around. This is a fairly rare event. It happens once every 15 years ago. So if you're near a telescope, like the Gordon Southam Observatory at the Macmillan Planetarium, it should take in a view. Venus is starting to make its presence known again. For all of 1995, Venus was in the morning skies and seen only by those of us who are early risers. Since August, Venus has, technically, been part of the evening sky, but because of the geometry of the Earth's orbit and Venus's orbit, it's been very, very low in the southwest and difficult to see. But from now through to the middle of next year, Venus will be putting on a fine show in the west. I'll be highlighting Venus next month on the Astronomy Show when we all get together and do a year in preview. But if you want to see Venus, December 24th, Christmas Eve, would be an excellent time because it and the moon will be close together just after sunset. Later on Christmas Eve, don't forget to look at the skies for that annual UFO spiraling around the globe to the southern hemisphere and back again. You know who we're talking about. Keep your eyes peeled. Hope for clear weather. The Earth passes through the center of the Geminid meteor showers on the evening of the 14th. The Geminids usually put on a pretty good show, but the near full moon will compromise their visibility. The parent body of this meteor shower appears to be an asteroid, asteroid 3200 Phaethon. The meteors we see on these evenings are therefore somewhat different than any other meteor shower because these are pieces of asteroid, rocks and rubble, rather than the fine cometary dust we normally see in a meteor shower. Well, that's it for the Astronomy Show Astro News for this month. We'll see you next month, and in the meantime, have a happy Christmas and a Merry New Year.
Well, that's our show for not only this month, but for this year. A happy 1995 to all of you at home. We'll look forward to seeing you in 96. So from all of us on the Astronomy Show, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
And now for the plugging in of the Christmas telescope. Woo! Yes!
All right.
Deck the scope with balls of holly, fa la 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 la. Hoping to see Comet Holly, fa la 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 la. Now we don our warm apparel, fa la 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 la. Looking down an eyepiece barrel, fa la 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 la.
The preceding program was produced through the facilities of Rogers Community 4, Vancouver. We want to hear from you and invite you to leave your comments and suggestions on our 24-hour response line message machine. Please call 731-5812.